Hello, everybody. This is Michael Jans. I am here to share a perspective, to share my insights, basically to share my insights on 30 years of studying the independent agency system, of studying independent agents, particularly studying organic growth, particularly studying what are the drivers that drive organic growth. So very quickly, for those of you who may not know me, and I'm looking at the names of those of you who are here, I recognize quite a few of you, but not all of you. So thank you so much for joining us. I've been in the industry for about 30 years. I was hired to be the CEO of the trade association in the Western states, the PIA, Professional Insurance Agents. And to some extent, yes, that's my origin story in the industry. It's also my origin story in marketing. I was hired really largely because it was a bit of a turnaround situation. And when I became involved in it and rolled up my sleeves and dove into the finances, I realized, oh, yes, indeed, this is a turnaround situation. And at that point in my life, I had 5 children. They were it was kind of dark days. There was a period where it was a pretty dark days. We went to PIA National and we borrowed money. And then that did solve my immediate cash flow problem, because it was pretty evident that within 45 days we were going to be out of cash. But that solved that problem. But now I not only needed to generate money to finally get out of the red into the black, but now I had a big debt to pay to PIA National. And so it just turned out I was lucky, period, flat out lucky. I obviously was responsible for conventions. I managed conventions for the state affiliates here. I hired a guy by the name of Jim Cecil, who was the highest rated speaker for Jay Abraham's $25,000 marketing boot camp. And he dazzled me, dazzled the audience. He was beautiful, beautiful man. He loved being in front of a microphone, loved being in front of an audience. He had a charm and a twinkle in his eye. And when he was done with his presentation, it was about marketing. It was about marketing in a way that generated maximum customer lifetime value and that earned relationship and depth of relationship with customers. And, I was in a situation where our insurance, errors and omissions insurance sales were going down, membership sales were going down, convention sales were going down, sponsorships were going down, CIC and other education revenue was going down. And I said, Jim, I need to know what you know. I need that stuff. He took me under his wing. He made me his protege. I drove up to Seattle, spent a weekend under his mentorship, and he loaded my car up with manuals of Jay Abraham, 4 years eyes only newsletters for his members, and cassette tapes of Gary Halbert's marketing boot camp. And I read until I knew what every page was going to say. I read it over and over, and I listened to Gary's boot camp until I knew the next words. And I began to execute those strategies, and everything went up. We doubled the size of CIC. We ended up with the largest associations in most of the states in the Western states that I was in charge of. The convention was robust. Things went really well. And what was interesting was when, my first inclination was to turn to insurance agents and my members of the board. And I said, we're in trouble. You run a business. How do you grow? Well, it occurred to me later that most of them were growing like 4, 5, 6% per year. And the kind of answers that they gave me were things like, oh, well, we take really good care of our customers. So, they send us referrals and, like very, very passive kind of marketing. And that was definitely not going to work for my situation. So I then, after sort of turning around the PIA, I launched Insurance Profit Systems, which hosted marketing and strategy, organic growth sessions online. I think we started with maybe teleconferences. There wasn't any video back then, and cassette tapes that I would send out to people on live boot camps and quarterly meetings. And then about 12 years ago, maybe longer than that, we started a small tech, InsurTech, one of the early InsurTechs, now called Agency Revolution, the largest marketing automation platform in the insurance industry. And I sold that 6 years ago and coasted a little bit for a while. Moved to Arizona, spent some time in a fairly quiet lifestyle in the desert, but continued to work with a small mastermind group. And that's what I have continued to do, is work with a small group of agents and sort of boutique advisory, helping them get to the next level. So now, why now? What am I doing now? Well, I'm at a stage in my career now where I know that at some point I'll be announcing a 24-month window before I intend to retire. And I'm at a point where I'm examining what's the best of what I know. What have the clients that I've worked with, those who grew 10x, for example, what did they do? And I've had some what I think are fairly remarkable insights. And so I'm packaging the best of what I know and attempt to deliver that in a packaged, easy to follow blueprint for my clients. And I'm also asking many of my clients who have had real success with the principles and the strategies that I teach and the systems that I impart to share. So over the last few weeks, I've interviewed Mike Matheson, who's grown from 6 million to 110 million in premium. I interviewed Michael De La Grange, a newer client, but he's been with me for 4 or 5 years. Last year grew 100, doubled the size of his agency. Half of that double was with an acquisition, but the other half organic growth. And this is not a small agency. He went from 5 million in revenue to 10 million in revenue, and half of that growth was organic growth. And so I've got a number of clients that I'll be interviewing in the very near future to share with you the best of what they know and the best of, hopefully, my intent is to leave a legacy behind in the industry. So let's get down to work. I do want to encourage you, if you have any, I'm going to stay on. If you have questions, please feel free to, I'll open this up for Q&A, and there's down at the bottom of the screen, there's a little Q&A icon. At the end, I'll open it up for Q&A. You can also chat questions. I'll try to keep an eye on it. You can also raise your little digital orange hand, and I will attempt to keep an eye on those as well, but I'll probably take most of the questions at the end. So I'm going to share my screen in sort of full transparency. What you see is what you get. All right. If Henry barks, you're going to hear it just like me, and you're going to see my screen, and some of it's going to be just me ugly because I'm bouncing around between 3 different platforms. So apologies for that, but your forgiveness is appreciated. So let's talk about what we're doing here. I'm sharing with you what I call exponential, unlocking exponential growth. Here's my definition of scaling, which is a word that I like to use. It's something I think we're familiar with in the technology industry. I was the CEO of an InsurTech that had to scale or it was going to die. And that's pretty standard with most tech firms, is you've got to hit scale. With insurance agencies, typically we don't think about scaling so much. My definition of that is 25.89% growth per year, because that's how much you need to grow each year if you want to be 10 times the size you are now in 10 years. So that kind of growth is possible. I've got and can introduce you to clients who've grown between 30 and 40% per year for over a decade. So it is possible. Here's the sort of the big insight that I want to share with you. I say that this is 5 secrets to live by. These really are strategic issues, not tactical issues. And I'm the first to recognize that it would be so nice if I could give you like a little pill. There was like a little tactic, like the magic email or the magic landing page, or, you know, the super groovy little piece of technology that you could put on your website and everything would change. Tactics can give you like little inflection points, but the major insight that I want to share with you is that strategy comes first, tactics come second. And I say this being able to look back at 30 years of agency growth and seeing which ones grew the most if they made the appropriate strategic decisions. First of all, it aligns all the tactics. It electrifies all the tactics. It helps build a culture that people can get behind. And it also keeps you out of trouble. So I'm gonna, but by the way, yes, while I'm sharing screen here, you probably have, or certainly I will get you a link to it if you don't, a copy of, let's see, like this book. Here, let's do this one. Yeah, so you probably have a copy of, this is my new book. So why strategy? I just said strategy really comes before tactic. Sometimes tactics don't solve the problem. With Agency Revolution, one of the problems I realized was that with all the tactics, you know, I'm sort of a tactical black belt. I've been studying direct response marketing for years and years, so I know tactics. And what I realized is that when tactics weren't getting the job done, I needed to dive into strategy and answer the big questions first. So I do put strategy first. I will also mention that as long as we're on the topic of books, we also have my marketing book, which I released about a month ago. So both of those are available. I don't charge for those. Essentially, both of them are the same, have the same theme: organic growth and a person-by-person assessment of the observations or the insights that I got from mentors, many of whom I worked with personally and many of whom I had to work with by consuming their content. So let's get down to work. And I'm going to try to time this. I'm going to have to zip through some things very, very quickly to get through this content. And so I will stay on. So if you have questions, if I go past the hour, I might have to, but if you've got questions, I'll stay on afterwards. So let's do that. So I have 5 sort of big strategic questions. And if you can answer these, you're on your way to really understanding or implementing, executing the blueprint to scaling your agency. The first one is, what's your strategic horizon? And I'm going to get into each one of these in detail, okay? What's your strategic horizon as an insurepreneur? And are you appropriately executing the behaviors that are optimal for your strategic horizon? Once you understand that, then you can answer the question, what's your optimal growth model? And I'm going to be presenting 3 growth models in this conversation. Then we start getting down to the rubber hitting the road. So it's not, obviously, strategy won't win without tactics. So we have to actually be in the marketplace and communicate with the marketplace. So now we have we have this juncture where strategy is kind of in dialogue with spreadsheets. And so the next question is, what's your growth plan? Step by step. Do you have the discipline within your agency to create a growth plan? And the fourth one is, okay, I know how I want to grow. What's the marketing plan? How am I going to attract, convert, optimize, and retain people? How am I going to deliver a customer journey that goes from point of contact in the marketplace to raving fan? And then ultimately, okay, I've got a marketing plan, but that still doesn't work without executing. So now I need to know, what am I going to say? How am I going to create the content that allows me to be in the marketplace, not just as another guy, another agent, but to be the thought leader that attracts the attention of the marketplace with integrity, trust, and respect. So part of what I've done here is identified 5 mentors of mine. Some, I think some of these I know personally, and some I don't. I was introduced to the work of Bill Grace by Katerina Fake, who was the co-founder of Flickr. Do you remember Flickr? Like, take pictures and share it, and other people would see it. So Katerina was asked, like, the secret to her success. And she alluded to Bill Gross's work. And essentially, he said, now, so he was, among other things, an investor in the early days of Silicon Valley. He said, timing, perseverance, and 10 years of trying will make you look like an overnight success. It's kind of like the story of agency revolution. And he had data on all of his investments. And so he analyzed what were the factors that drove success in the most successful ones. And the single most common factor that rose to the top was it team, was it strategy, was it product, was it, technology, et cetera, more than anything else, it was timing. So I'm going to share a few things about timing. And then I'm going to walk you into what I mean by strategic horizon. I actually first learned about timing from Dan Kennedy, but that was at the tactical level. But it points out the importance of timing in the marketplace. So an example of timing for us was in the early days. We did tons of direct mail. I had a list of 30,000 independent insurance agencies that we were in communication with. Our direct mail packages were masterpieces, if I say so myself. But if they arrived on the wrong day, they got a smaller response. If they arrived on the right day, they got a bigger response. And so we learned over time that there were certain regions of the company that took of the country, zip codes that took an extra day for the mail to arrive because of distance and having to get on a train and a truck and blah, blah. And so we would mail, the best mail day was Tuesday. And so we would mail most of the zip codes on Friday, but there were certain zip codes that were closer. We'd have to go to the post office on Saturday in order for it to show up on Tuesday. And so, that was sort of a sense of tactical timing. Another way to look at timing is that now there's timing in the industry. So, there are changes that are happening. There are trends, like with Flickr. What was it? What was it about Flickr that made it become something that was then worth millions of dollars and made Katerina, a multimillionaire? Well, that was when it was launched, when people, like, by the millions, were buying phones that had cameras, and they were carrying them with them wherever they went. And people were getting used to sharing content online. So boom. If she was too late, somebody else would have taken it. If she was too early, and I know what that's like, she wouldn't get traction because she wouldn't have the force of timing working in her favor. The kind of timing that I'm talking about for you is your strategic horizon as an insurepreneur. In other words, being clear on how many years is it between now and when you intend to sell. Why is that important? Because ideally for my clients, I want them to align income going up and growth going up, but also valuation, because ultimately that valuation is worth years of income and probably the biggest paycheck that you're ever going to get. So here's how this matters to you. And I've developed this by working with the M&A community. And the premise is the decisions you make now and the execution now determines the value later. So you need to understand your strategic horizon. Well, I divide your strategic horizon into 4 chunks, the 4 stages of the insurepreneur. More than 10 years, between 5 and 10 years, less than 5 years, and then after the sale, but during the earnout. More than 10 years, you've got one fundamental imperative: growth, growth, growth. Boom. Don't need to worry about margins other than that you want it for income and cash flow. And you want to be able to invest the income appropriately where you're going to get growth. So you don't want to be wasteful, but when you have an acquisition years later, nobody looks back at what you were doing 10 years earlier. They're looking at much more recent statistics. But then you get to that phase between 10 and 5 years. Now something has to change. And the thing that has to change is you need to, yes, grow, grow, grow. You never want to stop that. The agency that is growing, regardless of size, will generate a higher valuation than same size agency that's not growing as fast. So you want to keep that growing. But what happens here? This is the window that you have to optimize and stabilize by making your growth systems progressively less dependent upon the agency principal. Because if the systems, if the revenue, if the rainmaking is dependent on the agency principal, you're going to get penalized, you're going to get discounted when the acquisition comes. Because now what really matters, you get down to less than 5 years, now your financials need to look good. So you want to make sure you continue to have growth, because that's important. You want your revenue to be as high as possible. You want it to be independent as much as possible of your manual labor, so the systems grow, but you've got to have good EBITDA. So now you're at the point, because you've stabilized it in stage 2, but in stage 3, now you need to be managing for best practices while you're growing. So your EBITDA, which is the fundamental driver of your valuation, is as large as possible. I also include stage 4, which what happens after you get the big check, but maybe you've got 3 to 5 years of earnout. Well, that's a critical period, because a lot of people lose focus. So I just encourage my clients, remember, there's some things that you can control. Okay, so number 1, that is the importance of your strategic horizon. If you want the maximum valuation, that's where you want to go. So now we get down to another mentor of mine. I worked personally with Dan Sullivan for 11 years. And the bullet points here refer to critical bullet points that are in my reflection in the strategy book. Fundamentally, what I want to talk about here is Dan's inspiration, his insights on the importance of a unique ability team. This is how he defines it. The best kinds of teams are the ones where everyone is doing what they love to do and do best. These are what we call unique ability teams. Here's my definition of unique ability. And I sort of morphed that concept into what I call the personal gift and the gifted team. So this concept is where 3 things come together in a Venn diagram. Number 1, passion, like you love to do that. Number 2, you're good at that. So, you've got some conative, some natural proclivity to be able to do it. And 3, it's an economic driver. And so when those 3 things come together, you've got a unique ability. And ideally now you're looking for team members who have their own unique ability. They do what they love what they do, and they're good at what they do. However, for a lot of agents, they're not quite sure how to structure their own insurance factory, their growth model. So they're thinking, well, I guess maybe I need a producer or two, or should we hire another CSR, an account executive, or, do we have processors? Do we have a marketer, an upstream marketer? Do we have a downstream marketer? Somebody who does there's a lot of sort of traditional kind of holdover from previous generations that doesn't necessarily serve the industry that well. So I'm going to present 3 growth models. And for you, gaining crystal clarity on your model will turbocharge your agency. Let me show you exactly what I mean here. So I'm going to present, and I also want to give credit where credit is due. I work with my go-to M&A guy, Michael Mensch. And it's his numbers, 2,000 valuations that have helped create the data points that are in this tool. Okay, so in the growth model analyzer, what if you had a copy of this, what I would tell you to do is put your revenue there and put your expense lines over there. That's it. And the rest of the tool will reveal itself. So the industry has 3 growth models, which have proven themselves to be effective. Number 1 is the marketing driven. Number 2, the sales driven. Number 3, blended. Very simple. A marketing driven agency reaches out to the marketplace generally with some messaging, some content, something that allows the marketplace to become aware of who they are. The marketplace then reaches back and they get closed in-house on the phone or something like that. That's the basic structure of a growth model. Sales-driven model hires producers, and the producers go out and they get their own leads and they close their own sales, and usually they're vested over time and their book of business, et cetera, et cetera. And a blended, pretty common, where typically somebody says, well, we market to personal lines and small commercial lines, but for our larger accounts, we have producers. Now, each one has strengths and weaknesses. The marketing-driven agency can have a net profitability of 40 to 50%. What I mean by net profitability is the profit, not including owner's comp and owner's benefit as expenses. So 40 to 50% of a marketing-driven agency's top-line revenue can flow to the shareholders. The sales-driven agency doesn't, and because you can see, like, this is a $3.1 million agency, and for high profitability, they still have $620,000 in expenses. Lower profitability, still, that's $775,000 of that 3.1. That's a significant expense. So it definitely cuts into the net profitability. However, it's a good model that allows you to get great accounts. And if you have not hiring a producer, not hiring 2 producers, but if you have a producer management system, it allows you to scale ultimately infinitely. And then the blended model, profitability tends to come in somewhere in between. So my exhortation on the growth model is, number 1, be crystal clear on what your model is and build for that. Recognize, first of all, I want to point out one of the weaknesses of the blended model is it's hard. Often hard for agency leadership to be a marketing master and to really be masterful at running a sales management system. And so oftentimes they don't necessarily do either one all that well. Okay, that's a challenge. So number 1, gain clarity. Number 2, manage appropriately. So I do have clients that have so they'll plug this in and they'll realize, oh, I've got like a big variance. Like, I think with this agency, Yeah, whatever they have. Oh, yeah. Okay. So they plugged in $31,000 in commissions for the marketing. They're really a marketing driven agency, but they did that because they really incent their account executives who close the inbound call. So they chose to do that. But look, it's still, they're still doing just dandy, right? So, but they are aware of it. They own it. Frankly, they're managing if you consider that a marketing expense would be 171, it's still within the range of best practice. So number one, gain clarity, and two, take responsibility for variances so you can ultimately manage for best practices. As you approach the closer and closer to stage 3 and the lifetime of the insurerpreneur, these numbers really matter. So in stage 2, you want to take them really, really seriously. So the unique ability team, building it. Yes, you want to hire great talent. You just want to make sure that you're hiring a talent that is appropriate for the growth model that you've selected. Again, I want to remind everybody, if you have any questions, feel free, put them in chat. We'll do Q&A at the end, or raise your hand. We'll take it either way. All right. So now we all know Jim Collins, I think, in this industry. He had really poignant things to say about Progressive Insurance, and really they continued to fulfill, I think, his sense of prediction about where they were going. For those of you who've been around in the industry for a long time, you might remember what Progressive was in the early days and what it is now. Okay. The thing that I want to point out with Collins' work is what he calls the culture of discipline. And that culture really starts at the top. And there's certain disciplines that I see are missing in a lot of agencies. To quote him, greatness is not a function of circumstance. Greatness, it turns out, is largely a matter of conscious choice and discipline. And my question is that an agency should ask itself, do we have the simple discipline to plan our growth with the 4 monies and monitor our progress throughout the year? So we've determined our strategic horizon. We've determined what our optimal growth model is. Now, how are we going to grow this thing? Well, we need a plan. And ideally, we also want to have the discipline to monitor the plan and then to make adjustments as we go through the business year. So for that, to help my clients with that, I use what I call the agency growth planner. So I'm going to show you a sample agency, $5 million agency, 7,500 clients. Their current retention is a not too exciting 87%. Revenue per client automatically calculated at 667. So in using this tool, I ask my clients, bring in 3 numbers, which you should know. What's my top line revenue? How many customers do I have? And what's my current retention? Because from that, I can compute a growth plan. And I'll know, oh yeah, my revenue per client is 667. That's interesting. So now let's help this agency out, right? Let's help it grow more than 9.47%, which frankly is better than industry average, though with premiums in the hard market going up. Okay. So Safeco and Liberty did analysis on their agencies and determined that an agency that has a passive approach to referrals, meaning we take good care of our clients, so they send us referrals. They generate 1 referral per 700 clients per month. They also determine that when they install a referral program, typically on average, they'll double that. They'll get 1 per 350 per month. There are agencies that get 1 referral per 100 clients per month. Well, that would be pretty remarkable for this agency, because they have 7,500 customers, so they could get a lot of referrals. There's even an agency in the country that gets one referral per 46 clients per month. So for the fun of it, let's take them from passive. I call it passive, reliable, and ideal. Well, let's be conservative. Okay, let's take them up so boom, we just bumped their annual revenue by more than a point. Okay. Added a lot of money. I mean, let's see, what did that do? The passive referral program, 5.4, 5.5. We just add a referral program. Yeah, we added $100,000. That was kind of easy. And I'm saying we close referrals at 75%. That's automatically calculated here. So how many new customers they got? They got 193 customers, and they're automatically calculated at $667. Now, that 87% retention is bothering me. So for the sake of discussion, let's really focus on nurturing relationships and getting them richer and deeper, and creating a loyal, highly loyal insurance fan base. So let's get them up to 91%. Boom. Now revenue growth, 15%. That ain't bad. Now, revenue per client. How do we do that? Let's increase revenue per client. Let's do it 4 ways. One, let's get better clients coming in at the beginning. And then with our existing clients, let's do 3 things. Let's turn every inbound service call into a money call, and we'll train our team how to do that. Number 2, let's operate cross-selling programs throughout the year in a thoughtful, strategic way. And then number 4, let's run an annual account review at the end of the year. So instead of increasing revenue per client at 3%, premiums are going up, so let's bump them up to 10%. All right, so we got the agency, 10%. So we're trying to add $66 per client. You can play with it, okay? So 23% growth. Well, we're not quite there yet. We got to do what agencies love to do. Let's go get new customers, not from referrals, but from the marketplace. Let's say we're going to get 15% referral new customers. Now, we don't normally think of percent. Let's be more conservative. Let's say 10%. I know you can do that. We're going to do 10%. So I'm trying to be mostly conservative with this stuff. Let's say we got 750 new clients. Okay. For an agency that big, I'm embarrassed. Okay. That's not much. Okay. So agency's growing 29%. Okay. Now, how do we get 750 new clients? Well, we need leads. Okay. And for an agency, let's say this is a good solid agency. They didn't get to be $5 million by schlepping around. So let's say their closing ratio is 55%. Boom. Well, in order for them to get 750 new clients, they need 1,364 leads. Boom, they got to get 5 leads a day. The question is, does your agency have the discipline for this? And I don't mean just the mental discipline. You can do this. I mean, this takes an hour, and then, it's part of the monthly growth ritual that, you spend an hour on, and you review certain key things. This simple discipline that you want to bring into your agency. All right. So boom, we got our strategic horizon. Groovy. That's like super duper important when it comes to valuation. 2, we got the growth model. We got a wired. We're going to be a marketing driven or producer driven. And by the way, those numbers, those 40 to 50% or 25%, you can beat those. Those largely represent kind of the median average that Michael mentioned his team put together from numerous valuations. You can beat them. And certainly with a producer-driven or a sales-driven agency, one way you can beat them is you can support producers with marketing so that they're in front of an audience that's hungry to do business with them. Well, how do we do that? Well, for some of you, this stuff. I'm going to let's go back here. And yeah, I love this guy. By the way, in the back of my strategy book is my bibliography. I'll recommend every book there. One of my favorites is Playing to Win by Lafley and his chief strategist. I think that was Richard Rumelt, I think he worked with Rumelt, whose book I also love. Rumelt's book is called Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. Both really influenced my thinking. Of the sort of 5 critical bullet points in my observation of Lafley's work, his relationship to the customer was of critical importance. Okay, who is this guy? He was the CEO of Procter & Gamble, I think, for 9 years, during which both their stock price and their profit doubled. So I pay attention to them. And, look, so if you double your $3 million agency and make it a $6 million agency, okay, that's really great. But Procter & Gamble's a $120 billion company. They have over 100,000 employees. They're in 180 countries. So when somebody in that position talks, I definitely pay attention. And one of the things he did, one of the sort of the critical things he did with Procter & Gamble is he brought the customer into the boardroom. He brought the customer into the strategy room. The customer really drove the customer's desires, their needs, drove the positioning of Procter & Gamble. And it changed significantly during his leadership. So, as a marketer, those were things that I loved to hear. The consumer's the boss. Let the consumer. I mean, yes, I'll put a caveat around this. There's no one customer who's the king. Customers are wrong a lot, one-on-one. But when you're talking about the consumer as the marketplace, they're right. If you want to sell, they're right. So let's take a look at something that I know that many of you are quite familiar with. We'll look at the ACOR marketing plan. This, by the way, I'm just bringing you right into the same toolkit that I use with my existing clients. So I don't have time to show you everything that's in here, but essentially what I do want to show you is how to think like a marketer. And for some of you, you've seen it before, makes sense. So this is a concept that can change your life forever. And I know that to be true from feedback from my existing customers, Mike Matheson, and the interview I did with him a week ago. He's grown from $6 to $110 million. When I asked him in the interview, to what do you attribute your transformation? Like one of the things he put right on top, ACOR, understanding ACOR. It represents 4 systems that interlock with each other, each one of which requires its own distinct set of processes that produce reliable, predictable, positive response. So how do you go from $6 to $110 million? Or how do you go from what did we see with these guys? How could they possibly go from 5 million to 6.4 million in 1 year? By doing 4 things and doing 4 things really well. Number 1, attracting people into your marketing funnel. The trickiest part of marketing. That's the hardest part of sales too. Once you have a customer, of course, you've got the best customers. You've got the best prospects in the world are your customers, but have to be able to attract people into a marketing funnel, and then have to convert them so that you convert high quality clients. The conversion process becomes part of a unique customer experience. And then you optimize those relationships and make them as rich and deep as possible, doing some of the exact same things I talked about 5 minutes ago. And then you retain them as long as you possibly can. And so you want marketing systems that attract people the optimal way to do it in the world we live in today, whether you're marketing driven or sales driven, is the highest quality content that you can possibly create, which is thought leadership content, where your what you have to say, it rises as the signal above the noise, the one that people in your marketplace listen to when everybody else is just chattering. So you have to have systems that attract. You have to have systems internally that then take those attracted people and convert them into customers. You want to optimize. So yes, you are cross-selling. You're turning every service call into a money call. You're running an annual review campaign. And overall, you are creating a relationship with your customers such that it's a relationship that has integrity, trust, and respect. So they want to do business with you. They want to stay with you, retain, and they will also respond really well to your referral program and give you leads. And the interesting thing about those leads, two things I'll say about them. When you get a referral from a highly loyal insurance customer, one, it's the lowest cost of customer acquisition in the world because it's almost nothing. And two, if you ran a net promoter score on them on day one, they'd score a 9 or a 10. Referrals from loyal insurance customers come pre-baked as loyal insurance customers, which means that you generate the highest possible customer lifetime value. Customer lifetime value matters. I'm going to take you back to this for a minute. When we increased various things like revenue per client and retention, we increased customer lifetime value for this agency by almost 20%. That's where the wealth is. And so when you go to sell the agency, your EBITDA, your margin, your valuation is going to be reflecting your customer lifetime value. So I ask my clients every single month, how many leads? These are 4 questions that you should be able to answer every month, once a month. How many leads do we get? What's their conversion rate? What's our policy per customer count? And what's our rolling 12-month retention? Boom. Now, those are snapshot questions. I've got mastery, deep level analysis questions like what's our cost per lead? What's our conversion for Sally, Nancy, Bob, Sue, Ed, so on and so forth. We dig into the details, but you should at least be able to answer those 4 questions and then reflect on what's working, what's not, and what can we do to improve. So you're always getting better. And by getting better, I mean, you are walking your agency up from level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. It's not part of this presentation, but what we see in the industry is that every single agency fits into one of these 5 levels. The level 1 agency is stuck. It over relies on the agency principal to be the rainmaker. The level 2 agency is a well-run professional agency, kind of like the well-run professional agency of 1995, because they tend to be reactive to customer service, not proactive to the relationship. The level 3 agency adds investing proactively into customer relationships, so they get more referrals, they get more accounts per customer, and they get higher retention. Typically, they're growing 13 to 17%. The aligned agency aligns everything behind customer acquisition and customer lifetime value. So they've added the challenging but necessary element of customer acquisition, and the level 5 agency adds innovation above and beyond. So that gets us to number 5, one of my favorite guys of all time, brilliant, insightful strategist, Peter Drucker. Made a lot of contributions to the industry, but I thought, of course, I've got a bias here, but I think he's absolutely right. Of his key points, the one that I highlighted is marketing and innovation. His quote here is famous, and perhaps in the insurance industry famous because I use it a lot. Because he said, because the purpose of business is to create a customer, the business enterprise has 2 and only 2 basic functions: marketing and innovation. Marketing and innovation produce results. All the rest are costs. So that gets us to now, yeah, the rubber's really hitting the road here. Okay. So let's just review where we got. Yeah, the thought leadership. I'll just share this super quickly, and then I'll go back to where I was. Has 4 elements. 1, careful selection of the market. 2, careful crafting of the message and delivering it in such a way that, again, it's the signal above the noise. It's the clarion call that the marketplace responds to by taking action. Number 3, clear identification of the persona of the messenger. How does the agency, how does the agent, how does the agency principal present himself or herself to the marketplace? What do they stand for? How do they earn trust? And then ultimately, how do you select the media? So that then gets us down to actually being in the marketplace. Okay, so all of this stuff, I can have a clear understanding of my horizon. I got the greatest team put together around a growth model. I know how I'm going to get more referral, how many more I want to get, how many more referrals, how many more customers, et cetera. I know that. I understand the 4 stages of marketing, but I still have to be in the marketplace. So how do we get in the marketplace? We have to say, back in the day, people thought they were in the marketplace, and they kind of were by publishing a Yellow Pages ad. Okay, those days are 20 years behind us. All right. So here are a couple of things that I do for my clients. You have to have a content creation system that works for you. You have to know what to say, and then you need the content factory that creates it for you. So we create content for clients, but I'm also going to show you, I'm going to take you behind the scenes here in a second. So yeah, I'm going into the content library for one of my clients in February. He wanted to focus on restaurants in the northern regions of Ohio. And so, boom, we created a blog on outdoor dining, which was a topic that was important for him according to his specifications. You can't just jump on ChatGPT and say, write me this, and have it violate your voice, violate your tone, produce mediocre content. You've got to, if you're going to engage it like chat or artificial intelligence as a partner, as a teammate, you have to be able to manage it just like you would manage an employee. You have to do it with some excellence. We created a video script, which was intended to be exactly 60 seconds, word for word, 3 Facebook posts. Boom. LinkedIn, I'll do the same thing. Email sequence designed to drive restaurants to his content or ultimately to call him. We did all of that for outdoor dining, cyber, and EPLI. Now, there's another way that you can create content too. You can hire somebody to do it. You can do it yourself, or you can have ChatGPT help you. The thing that I want to urge you not to do is just jump on it and produce mediocre content. If you want to be a thought leader, a little bit of expertise goes a long ways. So again, in this case, I've created a toolkit for my own clients where they, first of all, can gain some understanding of mastering the prompts. The magic is in the prompt. So you want to master the prompts, understand the different kinds of prompts. You want to know how to customize them. I created some killer prompts for agents, et cetera, et cetera. And then you want to craft persuasive emails, okay? In this case, I've actually created fill-in-the-blank prompts for 4 different kinds of email sequences. And then we also have identified 8 different copywriting formula that they can use. And so we can use those for creating sales emails, subject lines. Now, if you, I have another book coming out on copywriters who have influenced me. Each of them has a style. And so one element that you can include in your prompts are to ask them to do it in the style of Victor Schwab, 1930s marketer, direct response copywriter, Robert Collier, 1940s, Caples, Ted Nicholas, who I studied under in the 90s, Joe Sugarman, who I studied under in the 90s, Kennedy, who I studied under in the 2000s, Gary Halbert, who I studied with in the 2000s. ChatGPT even knew my content. Relatable and authentic. Ain't that nice? Jay Abraham, you can ask it to, as an element of your prompts, you can ask it to deliver it in that style. You still, I use ChatGPT as a tremendous time saver for me, but I never let it write final. I let it write first and second drafts, and final becomes my responsibility. But there's a lot that you can do. You just want to be able to do it right. Newsletters, emails, LinkedIn, blogs, evergreen content, frequently asked questions, and so on and so forth. Boom. So I'm going to review this in a moment, but I do want to show you one thing. Yes, we've covered your strategic horizon, your growth model, your growth plan, your marketing model using the 4-stage ACOR model. You need some way. Now, if you're serious about this, you need some way to be in the marketplace, and content is now what people consume. It can be top of the funnel. This is also part of your chat GPT, prompt sequence. Top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, bottom of the funnel. You've got to have some factory, some way where internally you're capable of producing high quality content. And then I really will ask you once a month, make sure that you are on board with your strategic horizon and you're in the appropriate phase, that the agency is performing appropriately in each of the 4 phases. You want to review your growth model and see if you have variances in expenses and that you're operating according to best practice. Number 3, you want to make sure that your growth plan is functioning appropriately and you're hitting your numbers or making adjustments, which then takes you down to the ACOR model so you can see what's working and what's not. You can dig into a sort of a deeper level analysis to gain a deeper understanding. And then ultimately, you want to review your communications plan, make sure you're actually delivering it, and then fill out an action plan so you know where you're going. So in a moment, I'm going to be taking any question that you want to shoot at me. Go full screen here. Oops, and oops. So hang on. Here, I'm going to take you here. Boom. Yeah. So what if Michael Jans were going to be reviewing like what are the strategic issues that I would be saying are most important to you? I can't cover everything that has to do with strategy here, but these 5 things will be these are the things that will help 10x. They'll 10x your agency, and getting to a 30% annual growth rate, you get there by walking through these 5 things. Gain clarity on your strategic horizon. Choose the optimal growth model. So you got 4 options with the strategic horizon. They're determined by when you want to sell. You got 3 options with a growth model: marketing, sales, hybrid. You got 4 monies: referrals, increase revenue per client, get new customers, increase retention. you've got the 5-stage marketing model. So now you can drive people into a satisfying customer journey, and you've got to be able to say something to your marketplace. Ultimately, I know every single agent that I want to work with, they want to dominate a marketplace with integrity, trust, and respect. In the long run, it's the best strategy anyway, because customer acquisition is of critical importance. Customer lifetime value is what's going to generate the greatest amount of wealth and growth over time. The money's in the relationship. So I cheated on my one question for your agency, because I have two. If you want to grow, do you have the right growth strategy in place? Is it ready? And number two, do you have the systems in place to execute that? That being said, I'm going to open this wide open for questions. If anybody would like to talk to me one-on-one, if you would like, I'll spend roughly an hour with you. I think the appointment says 45, but they usually last about 60 to 75 minutes. I'll go through this entire blueprint with you. I'll help you gain clarity on not only your horizon, I'll walk through the growth plan with you. I'll answer any questions that you've got about the ACOR marketing model and how to generate the most based on what's working tactically in the world right now. And I'll certainly be happy to talk to you about how to create the highest quality content. If I want to make one promise for everybody who's on this call. Now, you might need to remind me of this, okay? If you choose, say, hey, I actually want to work with you, because I'm not doing this much longer. I'm very close to announcing that I got 24 months left, and what I'm looking for is a cadre in the industry of agencies that want to learn what I've learned in the last 30 years and know what I know. I want to pass that on so that I can feel like I left a legacy behind with people who care about running world-class agencies that can grow. So if you think that we might work well together, and I see I've got some former clients who I'd love to work with again, I'll offer you the first 30 days for free, no charge and no obligation. So if you choose not to continue, you pay nothing. So, and during those first 30 days, you will get a hour to an hour and a half onboarding call with me. You will use that as an in-depth consultation to help you gain absolute clarity. So I'm leaving it up to you. So if you've got your mobile phone, scan the QR code and set up a conference with me, and let's talk. If you're serious about growth, and if I know most of you probably know something about me, hopefully I've earned your trust. Hopefully, perhaps I've given value to you in the past. If I have, schedule some time with me. All right. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, so grab that now. We can also put it in chat. In fact, Adrian, if you want to go ahead and put a link to that in chat. I'm going to see if we have any questions. So yeah, we can open up Q&A. So if anybody has any questions on anything that I've covered, happy to do it. Or you can chat. We got a nice big group, but at this point, I don't see that I do have any. So I'll give you a countdown, and then we can all go enjoy the rest of our day. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right. Well, as always, I enjoyed spending time with you. Every day with you is Valentine's Day. And if I have an opportunity to have a one-on-one conference, my promise to you is you will get value out of that conference. And perhaps you'll be inspired to work with me and to get to know people like Mike Matheson and Michael De La Grange and other members of the mastermind group, some of whom are small and wanting to get to the next level, and some of whom are very, very big and continue to participate. So without further ado, been a privilege to spend time with you, and I look forward to talking to you later. Thank you.